All right. All right. So I'm Mike Lampros. I live here in Richmond, Virginia, and I am a graduate of the University of Richmond. I've done one other Osher class before, and I used to teach for them a long time ago. Today's beekeeping. I brought a hive into my kitchen. What we're going to learn today is not advanced beekeeping techniques, not queen rearing, not hive splitting. We're going to learn, do we actually want to do this? What do I need to do? And how do I get started from nothing to having a hive sitting in my yard? This is recorded. If you have questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat box down there. And Janice will ask me. I think one person asking questions is enough. I'm happy to be interrupted. Like I said, nobody that I know is a real expert on this. You ask 13 beekeepers a question, you get 26 answers, you get 3 fights, and you get some people never talking to each other again. I'm going to tell you what works for me. And I'm pretty much a hands-off kind of guy. I think bees have been around for thousands of years. The Egyptians used them for meat and honey and wax and whatnot. I think they know what they're doing better than what I know what I'm doing with them. I just offer them a place to live on my property, basically, and then they go do their thing. So I'm going to, I did a PowerPoint. It's only the second PowerPoint presentation I've done. So if there's misspelling, it's probably due to my education, and I did go to U of R. So we have that going on. All right, so this is it. The basics of beekeeping. This is just getting started. And again, just tells you who I am. And I can't, there it is. So what we're going to discuss in class today is the very basics from zero to getting a hive. Why keep bees? Can I keep bees? Some learning resources, things that you need to do to read before you start keeping bees, the different types of beehives that are out there, where to put those hives, the different types of bees, how do I get bees? And then once you get them in there, you start feeding them. And then you have a hive. And then maybe we'll do another class, and that'll be, intermediate beekeeping. I don't even know. I can't even speak. So that's what we're going to discuss today. What we're not going to get into is like splitting hives, queen rearing, mite and pest control, catching swarms, advanced beekeeping techniques, harvesting from the hive, the wax, the propolis, the pollen, the whatnot. If you got a question, type it in. I'm happy to answer as best I can, but I think we need to learn how to walk before we can run. If you don't have a beehive, it's just going to confuse you, and you're going to get lost on all of that stuff. Again, we're just going for the basics of nothing to a beehive. All right, so why keep bees? Well, probably last year, a lot of people, needed or wanted a hobby. We were all locked up. We're all just, looking for something to do. And also, all of us in Osher, well, I'm 55. You're starting to look for things to do outside of work, to get hobbies to do. Work is becoming a less important part of our lives. And, we're going into that, I guess,
Michael,
our golden years or whatever. And we're, yes.
We do have a question.
Yes.
What is propolis? Am I saying that right?
Propolis, propolis. Right. Okay. Propolis. It's a substance that the bees harvest from trees. It's a sticky substance. They use it to seal the hive up. So when you have multiple boxes, they will seal the edge of the hive up with propolis. What that's good for, you can make a tincture out of that with, like, say, grain alcohol. That's good for cuts, bruises. It's good for sores. There's a lot of medicinal uses of this, and it goes deep. It's same with the pollen. You can collect pollen from a beehive. Can you all see me on the screen, by the way, in the corner? Janice, can they see me as well?
Yes, you're small.
So the propolis would be done. That's okay. They would seal up the hive here. Also, if a mouse gets in the hive, they will kill the mouse. And since it's too big for them to move, they will mummify it with propolis and just keep it in the corner of the hive. It has a bunch of different reasons for them to use it. And then there's a lot of medicinal reasons that the humans use it. Same with the pollen. You collect pollen. Some people take a tablespoon of pollen every day. They eat it. It's good for their system. And again, we get into advanced beekeeping. I have a pollen trap that, as the bees come in the hive, it knocks it off their back legs, and you can collect the pollen. So I hope that answers your question on propolis. It's a sticky, almost like sappy substance that has medicinal uses for humans. And so that's the second part of why keep bees. We want the products from the hive. We want the medicinal value of the hive. We want the honey. We want the wax. This is a bee comb that they just built that kind of got wonky in one of my hives, and they built this. That's just wax. You can melt it down. You can make lip balm. You can make candles, which I think is kind of a waste of wax, but it's your wax. You can do a lot of different things with it. You know, people want the apitherapy. A lot of people with arthritis will take bees and let them sting where it hurts, and it's supposed to make you feel better. I get stung. I kind of get annoyed. But there is some benefits to bee sting therapy. Other people want to be outside. They want to be part of nature. They just enjoy the outside. They want to have a beehive. Some people use it as a side business, extra money. You can sell, you go to any kind of farmer's market, somebody's selling honey, somebody's selling wax, somebody's selling pollen or something like that. Also, the environmental stewardship. You want to save the bees. A lot of people are hearing about beehives dying, colony collapse, all that stuff. And that's where I differ. I'm in the impression that the more humans mess with them, the weaker we're making them, and the more we're kind of killing them off. Bees have been around a lot longer than I have, and they'll be around a lot longer than I will be. I think bees know what they're doing. I think as soon as we start messing with them, we're making them a weaker species. So, but if you want to save the bees, get hives. It's been a bundle of fun. It's been a lot of good time for me, and I've been doing it for I think about 7 years now. Any questions on why keep bees? I mean, that's just kind of basic. Anybody, like I have the last boxes, you tell me, why do you want to keep bees? Let me know. Just type it in there and Janice will pipe in and tell us why you want to keep bees. All right. The next slide is, can I keep bees? Is that allowed? First off, are you allergic? We talked to the other woman before this started that she got stung by yellow jackets. Are you or your pets allergic to bees? Because EpiPens are expensive. Anaphylactic shock is a real thing. If you get stung, you know, it's a problem. And you don't want to have basically a death machine if you're allergic to bees sitting in your yard. Do you have the time? For me, beekeeping doesn't take much time. Some people go in their hives every week. They move things around. They like to look. They like to find the queen. They like to see what's going on. I kind of go in maybe 6 times a year, and it's always kind of a surprise when I go in there. I think if you go into a hive every week and move things around, that's like somebody coming into your house and rearranging all your shelves every week. It's kind of annoying. I think it startles the bees. I think it gives them a reason to swarm and leave and go somewhere else where they're not bothered as much. You can tell a lot from looking at the entrance of a beehive, what's going on. If it's all drones flying in and out, you might be queenless. If there's nobody bringing in pollen, you might be queenless. If you keep seeing the hive grow, you know, I think you're going to be okay. You can listen to the hive. If it's got a lot of noise going on there, you're okay. You don't need to go in there and start digging around. Just as a note, oops, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't know how I did that. That bee with the green on it right there, that is your queen bee. She has been marked by a human. Humans will mark their queens. That's a green bee. I think green stands for a queen that was born in 2014 or 2019. There's 5 different colors. We'll get into the queen marking. Every 5 years it repeats because queens only live for 4 years. But that's a 2014 queen bee from one of my hives in Roanoke. All right, back to, can I keep the bees? Do you have the space? Do you have a yard? You can keep bees. I have them on my front porch. I have 3 hives on my front porch facing the street. It's a great deterrent to keep people from robbing your house. You know, you don't need a lot of space. People do them on their rooftops in cities and whatnot. Bees fly 2 miles in either direction. It's a 4-mile radius that they can go foraging for food. They can figure out where to go and how to get back. You don't need a lot of space, but you don't want to put it when you're walking directly in front of it constantly. Does your city, town, or HOA allow you to keep bees? A lot of HOAs are picky. I don't live in one. I kind of just do whatever I want with my yard, and that's the way I like to live. But if you're in an HOA, you might not be allowed to have a beehive. Every city from Henrico, and I don't know if everybody here is from the greater Richmond area. Some of us might be from further away. I don't know. But Henrico to Hanover to you know, Verona and whatnot. Sorry, I didn't know my phone was on. They all have different ordinances. So some places will let you keep them, some won't. You know, you got to check before you do that. And how well do you get along with your neighbors? If your neighbors want to pick on you for something, a beehive is a great thing to pick on you about. It stung my dog. It stung this. It stung that. They're in my pool. They're in my way. Nasty neighbors can make your life miserable. So, I mean, can you keep bees? These are some things you should think about before you just stick a hive in your yard and your neighbor sees you. There are rules, like for us, it's 10 feet from your neighbor's yard. You have to have your beehive in at least 10 feet into your yard. I've got one in the back, or I used to. It was just right there. My neighbors were cool with it. They got free honey. They got free vegetables from my garden. So they didn't mind at all, but I talked to them before I did it. So, you know, we've discussed why we keep bees and can I keep bees. We'll go to the next slide what do I need to do before I get started? You got to read. Don't just go in and go, what do I do? How do somebody tell me what to do? Do a little reading, watch a little YouTube video, and educate yourself. The two books that I like are Beekeeping for Dummies and The Backyard Beekeeper. And I have links to these in the next slide. I read both these books. I read about 6 others. These are the two that I really rely on a day-to-day basis. There'll be links in the slides. YouTube videos, I really enjoyed Backyard Beekeeping. Some guy did it. It's probably from 2013. He went through step by step on how to get a beehive going. I can tell you everything in theory, and until you see it, it's kind of hard to do it. Join a bee group in your area. Just Google local bee clubs. You will find, I think in Richmond, there's 6 or 7. Go join a bee club. I think it's $10 or $15 a year. The price is nominal. You go there, they have people speak, they give away free things. I think the first one I went to, I won a bee brush. You know, they just do a drawing. $10 a year. What you'll do is you'll meet somebody that has hives, that wants to be a mentor. You go join that, him or her, and then go in the hives with them. Do it this year, and then you'll get your beehives next spring. Always plan about a year ahead on your bee stuff. All right. So that's the next question. Plan a season ahead. I purchased my hives and equipment in August, September. I stain it, paint it, stain it, whatever you want to make it look nice. Do a brighter color, do a lighter color. Do not do a dark color because that'll heat the beehive up in the summertime. But nice pastels are always fun. White is always good. And I did more of a stain. I think I did a pecan stain and stuff. But stay a season ahead. Have everything set. Have your hive ready. Purchase your hive. Get it to go. Put it in the garage, and then in the spring, we can move it out to the yard. Clear a spot out in your yard where your dog doesn't run, where your kids don't play, where it's not going to fly into your neighbor's yard. And then come spring, you'll have already ordered your bees from your local bee group, and all you got to do is install them, and you've got a beehive. But you have to start ahead. You can't start in April, May of 2022 and expect to have a healthy beehive, you know, in June. You've got to start a year ahead. Anybody got any questions? Can I go on? We're good, Janice?
I don't see any questions. Go ahead.
All right. So these are the 2 books that Beekeeping for Dummies and the Backyard Beekeeper. I just put those in there for your reference because this, I think Janice or Peggy or whoever, we're going to give the people this PowerPoint presentation afterwards. So you will have all this information. You can take the PowerPoint presentation and do as you please with it. And here's the two beekeeping YouTube videos I watched. Don the Fat Bee Man is very popular. He has online Zoom classes. He does a lot of stuff. I kind of like the backyard beekeeping a little bit better for my needs. But those are just resources for you to use, for you to get started and educate yourself before you walk in and go, what do I do? At least you'll have some knowledge on what you can do. So what kind of equipment do I want? There's basically two kinds of beehives. The top one is called a top bar hive. It's more of an all natural way to have bees. There's no real frames. There's just a bar, and the bees will build their comb up underneath it. It'll just be like a bar hanging, and they will build comb like this, and they will live off that. There's no base, there's no foundation, there's no plastic. They will just build a comb like that, and it's a little bit more of an all natural way. I don't use those, so I can't speak a lot about them. I use a Langstroth hive, which I think is right here in my kitchen. This is a 10-frame Langstroth hive. Langstroth, I think he was a monk or something like that, or a priest about a couple hundred years ago. He figured out the exact spacing of bees, the exact spacing of the frames and everything, where you get the maximum yield out of your hives. They come in 8 or 10 frames. I made the mistake of buying 10-frame hives, but I was also younger and my back didn't hurt as much when I bought them. I would think at this age, at 55, I would get the 8 frames. That takes a lot of weight off your back. They're easier to handle. They don't take up as much space. It's only 2 frames, but it can deduct 8 to 10 pounds out of each time you lift it. Instead of being 60 pounds, you're down to 50. And these things do get up to 50 and 60 pounds, especially the deep ones. This is a deep box. This is a shallow box. Some people run all shallows. They let their queens lay on shallow frames. Most people will do deep boxes for the queen and the hive. The shallow part up here, they'll use to harvest honey. But whatever you get, I suggest that you get the same thing all around, because this is from 3 different hives that I just kind of Frankenstein together. These are a new top and bottom. This is from a beehive I bought in Remington, Virginia. And I hate to tell you this, both places in Virginia that I buy my stuff from have gone out of business. So we'll have to find a new place to get this stuff in. And I got some ideas at the end of this. But this is from Remington and this is from Fishersville. I can just tell by the way that they're screwed together. So if you have the same size, it all works. You can mix and match. You can take this off of one hive of honey and give it to another hive that needs honey. So, whatever you decide to do, just do it uniformly. I would suggest a Langstroth 8-frame hive. All right, go to the next slide. That's what it looks like unassembled. You can buy them unassembled. You can buy them assembled. I built this one myself. I bought this one unassembled. I bought this one assembled, built this one myself. Takes an hour or so in the garage. It depends on how handy you are and how much you want to do. They come unstained, they come unpainted, they come just like that. On the left are your boxes. On the right, with the strap around it, that'll be your frames that go inside the box. And then in the back is the fronts of the boxes. So once that's assembled, it's going to look like this. That was an entire beehive I bought from one store. That's one package. It's one setup. If you look at the bottom, you have a bottom board. You have 2 or 3 deeps on this one. 1, 2, 3 deeps, and then you have 3 shallows, a top feeder, a top, and an inner cover. And we'll go over that. I'll take it apart here in a second. But that's basically, if you did every bit of your hive out, it's going to be that tall. It's going to be that high. You're going to start with one box. So I'm just letting you know, you got 3 medium boxes, 2 deep boxes, a bottom board, a outer cover, a top cover. And I'm going to pull this hive out here in a second and walk you through it. But that's what an assembled beehive looks like. you're going to want to, well, let's get to the next hive. Hive placement. Oops. The hive is to face south, southeast. These are my hives that I put on my mother's property in Roanoke. She's got about 3 acres. It's in an old dog run we had when we were kids. A dog does not live in that dog house back there. I just couldn't get the dog house out of the run. But they face south, southeast. They want the morning sun. As the sun hits them in the morning, it warms the hive up. It wakes them up. It gets them out. It gets them working. You need to give them a water source. They like dirty water. Bees will go to your neighbor's pool. They'll drink out of there. My neighbor 2 doors down called me a couple of weeks ago and said, come over here and look at my front porch. He's got a mat that was wet and it was covered in bees drinking. He didn't care. He was just showing me. He just thought it was interesting. But they like it. They like they need water, and they kind of like dirty water. So offer it to them near their hive so they don't go into your neighbor's stuff and bother your neighbors. Place your hive over gravel or mulch. My hive is over gravel in the dog run here. You don't want to be getting a weed eater under there or a lawnmower under there. The noise will get them active. The noise will get them a little perturbed, and they will get a little bit aggressive. So, I just lock them in the dog run, put a lock on the dog run so neighbor kids don't get into it. If you take the initiative to have them in a safe location where they're not dangerous, then your neighbors can't complain to you that their kid got into it. If their kid got into it, it climbed over a 6-foot fence to screw with it. That's kind of their fault. Use natural barriers to your advantage. I have a fenced in yard, a hedgerow, something like that. Put that behind the bees. Like my fence is over here. I have the hive facing away. They're not going into my neighbor's yard at all. They're flying out, and it says 6 feet out, 6 feet up. So when you put it in your yard, if you're 6 feet away from your hive, the bees are 6 feet off the ground. When they come out, they go up, 6 feet out, 6 feet up. So you kind of want to do it where if you walk down your steps, the bees are flying over your head and not into you. So I hope that is helpful for you guys. So this is my water source I used on the left. I went to Kroger's, go to the end of the season. They have stuff on sale. I bought their bird bath. I put some rocks in it, got a little clay pot, put some dirt in there and some moss that I just dug up out of the yard. It kind of looks nice. The bees like it. If you don't have anything floating in the water, bees will drown. They get into the water, they can't get out, and they drown. You'll just have a puddle of bees. A lot of people will take a pool noodle and slice it up and float it around. The bees like to get on that and drink the water out of there. The picture on the right is my backyard. That's the way I do it. If you look at where my little pointer is, that's where the beehive was kept. It's not to code because it's too close to my neighbor's yard, but they didn't care. But I also had a fence about 12 feet away. So by the time the bees got into my yard, they were well over my head. They didn't bother me. My dog got stung by that hive, but I didn't have the fence up, and I just used old powder. You'll also notice I stuck a beehive on top of my neighbor's shed. That's to catch a swarm of bees because I only bought bees once in 2014. Ever since then, I just split hives or I catch swarms. That's a little bit more advanced. I suggest the first time you get bees, you buy them from your bee group. But that's how I kind of set my bees up. They're off the ground. I use 2 cinder blocks and 4x4s through the cinder block holes, and the beehive's off the ground. And that's kind of a little bit of your hive placement. And face it south to southeast. Obviously, I grow a garden as well. Funny thing is bees won't go to that garden if they're in that hive. They'll go 2 miles away before they'll mess what's right in front of them. For some reason, that's what they do. Other bees in your garden are probably from other hives in your neighborhood or wild bees. Everybody good so far? I feel like I'm just rambling, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think everybody's good. I don't see anything in chat.
All right. So how do I get bees? Best way to do it is join your bee group and they'll tell you how to get bees in your area. You can get them from a local beekeeper or a local bee store. A lot of bee groups will buy a box of bees. They'll buy 250 and they'll just sell them to their members. And I'll talk about that in a second. I bought a nucleus of bees, which is basically I bought a small hive and just transferred it and put it in my hive. You buy a box of bees, that's a whole different story. But to get the bees, go to your bee group, talk to the guys in there. They'll sell bees out of there. The box of bees is cheaper than the nucleus of bees, and we'll get into that in the next slide. But that's the best way to do it. They will mail you a box of bees from Georgia to your house. The problem with that is you're excited to get them. The postman is not excited to deliver that to you. So you don't know how that's being handled. I suggest you get from a local beekeeper. The bees are used to that area. The bees are used to that environment. The bees are used to the foraging stuff, the stuff they forage from. You're not bringing people up from Georgia or Texas that have a whole different climate and stuff. So they're climatized. They have a better chance of getting through the winter. But I would just go to the bee group that you're in, talk to your mentor, and your mentor might split bees and might give you a hive if he can get some of your honey the next year, or he'll give it to you at a discount.
How many are in a box of bees?
30,000.
Oh,
or no, 10,000.
10,000.
And I'll show you what. I'll show you what a box of bees looks like in a minute. But you'll get about 10,000 bees. You'll get. They'll have some drones in there, which are the male bees. You'll have a queen, and she is completely separated in a smaller cage from the rest of the hive because that is not a family. They've just thrown a queen in there. They've thrown everything else in there. They put a can of syrup in there to feed them, and then they gave it to you. So it's basically, just it's basically a bunch of people that don't know each other get together in a group, and you got to tell them to work together. A nucleus of bees is a queen that's laid the eggs. Its legs have hatched. It's a family. And they work together. The worker bees respect the queen. They've accepted her, and they'll take care of her. A lot of times in a box of bees, as soon as the queen is released from the cage, they'll just kill her because they have not accepted her. That's another problem you get. Then you have to buy another queen, introduce that queen. It's a problem. I kind of suggest a nucleus of bees as opposed to a box of bees, but it's also a little bit more expensive. But the first time I bought bees, the only time I bought bees, I bought 2 nucleus of bees, and I have the honeybee breeds up here. I bought the carniolas or the carnolians or however you pronounce it. I bought them because they're kind of calm. When you pick up a comb, they will climb over your hands. They won't sting you. I did all my research, bought the carniolas. Most people will get Italians. A few will get Russians. And that's basically your 3 choices. If you buy a box of bees from Georgia, you're going to get Italians. The carniolas build up fast. They work together. But I will tell you, once your hive swarms and they make a new queen and she goes and breeds, you don't know what you're getting. They're going to be mutts. All my bees now are mutts. Every hive I have on the property are from swarms that have moved in. I haven't seen a queen and I only have 2 hives right now. I haven't seen a queen in either hive, but as long as I see that a queen is doing queen things, laying eggs, there's comb, there's all that stuff in there, then I know I have a queen. I don't find it necessary to lay eyes on the queen. I just find it necessary to make sure that queen stuff is going on. You've got eggs, you got cat brood, you've got plenty of stuff going on. It's almost like dogs. You get a mutt dog, it's healthier. I've got a boxer in this room over here. He just turned 13 Sunday. Well, we just found out he's got a little cancer we got to deal with. If you get these purebreds, they get sick. He is 13, but they get sick easier. You get mutt dogs, they kind of just live forever, and they when they do pass, it's just from old age. So first time you buy bees, you're probably going to get Italians if you buy it through your bee group. If you buy a nucleus, you can kind of pick and choose. You can kind of talk to your local beekeeper about what you want. But this little graph here, I always like to use it. It tells you do they overwinter well? Are they, they build up quick? Are they mean? Are they not? Make your choice off that. Do a little bit of research and talk to your mentor, and he'll tell you what to get. I just think mutts are better. You don't need to get purebreds. So this is what a package of bees looks like we were talking about. You get a box of bees. There is wire mesh on 2 sides so it breathes. You get a can of sugar in there, syrup. That's what will feed the bees while you're there. And you've got a queen. At the far right-hand picture is how they send the queen to you. If she's in a little cage, sometimes they'll put an attendant or 2 in there. If you look on the left-hand side of that picture, there's a white stopper in there. You'll pop that out and you'll put a marshmallow in there. And the bees will eat the marshmallow from the outside and the queen will eat the marshmallow from the inside and she'll release herself. You better hope by that point they've taken on her pheromone smell. They've taken on her as a queen. If not, they'll kill her immediately. But that's how a box of bees comes to you in the mail. Or if you get it from your bee group, you'll stop by somebody's house and he'll hand you one of these and you'll drive home with this. Postmen don't like this. Also, they'll put them in the back. They'll kill them. They'll put them in a hot spot. They'll do something. So I kind of suggest you get local instead of bringing them up from Georgia. But there's your package of bees. You get about 10,000 bees. You don't get any comb. You don't get any honey. You don't get any eggs. You don't get any cat brood. You just get a box of bees and they're starting from scratch. It takes them longer to build up into a hive as opposed to a nucleus of bees, which is this. And basically you're buying a small hive. It'll come in this box right here. If y'all can see the video, this is actually the box that I got when I bought bees. They hand you this. It's got, hold on, I got it closed off right now. It's got a vent on this side. And obviously I don't have bees in here because I'm in my house. You take it off, it's got the outer cover, it's got the inner cover, and it'll have 5 frames inside your box. You just take these out and you drop it into your hive. And it's as simple as that. You've gone from no bees to a hive of bees. This is the way I like to do it. And if you look at that, in the 2 or 3 days it took to get from where I bought it to where I put it, the bees started building wax on the top. They are busy. They will do, if there's a space to put wax or comb, they will do it. This is kind of the way I suggest you buy it. I went to Blacksburg and got these because the first hives I have, I did in Roanoke. So I just drove up to Blacksburg one day, picked these up, drove these 2 back to the house and put them in. And we had a beehive. A little bit more expensive. That'll cost you about $189 each. A box of bees might be from, 100 to 125. So, but that's it. So usually in this nucleus here on the right, you'll get 5 frames usually. You'll get a queen bee. She's on the frame. She's been laying eggs. She has cat brood. And she has been approved by the Department of Agriculture as well. They're not going to let you sell, they don't let beekeepers sell uninspected hives, I don't believe. You're going to have worker bees. All worker bees are females. You're going to have some drones in there. Those are male bees. There'll be some honey and pollen in there. And like I said, basically you have an established hive. You've taken your painted beehive, you stuck it on your cinder blocks or your bee stand, you pop it in there, you stand back, you've got yourself a hive.
Michael,
and this is the 3 yes.
What is a capped brood?
Okay, so the queen will lay an egg. This is, see it, this is comb. The queen will lay an egg in there. And the worker bees, which are female, the queen's the only one laying eggs in the hive. The females do not lay eggs. The queen will lay an egg. the workers will feed it, and once it turns into a pupa, or the larva, they'll cap it, and there'll be they'll cap it with, I don't even know what it is, to be honest with you, and we'll get a picture of it in a minute. And then when it turns from the pupa into a bee, it gnaws its way out of there, and you've got a bee. So cat brood is basically uh, the bee is in its gestation period. The bee is turning in from basically like almost like a slug looking thing. And it's almost like a butterfly's transformation. It turns into the slug into a bee. That's what cat brood is. Um, but if you see the cat brood, you know that you've had a queen laying in your hive within the last, you know, 10 days. And that's why you don't need to see a queen. If you can see the eggs in some comb, you see a cat brood, you know you got a laying queen, and you're going to be okay. So the females, they're the workers on the left of the picture. They do everything. They come out of their comb. They come out of one of those combs. They immediately turn around and clean it for the queen to come back and lay another egg in there. They do the rearing of the eggs. They do the rearing of the young. They build wax at a certain part of their life. They produce wax out of their thorax for like 3 or 4 days. They build comb. Then they go to defending the hive at the door, and then they start flying and bringing back pollen and honey. They do everything. They take care of the queen. They take her waste out. They tend to her. Um, and they also monitor the queen as well. If the queen's not laying properly, if she's not putting enough eggs out, if she's got a spotty pattern, or if she seems weak, they'll kill her. They'll get around her. It's called balling her. They get around her and they vibrate until they kill her. And they'll make a new queen, basically. What they do is they take an egg, they put it in a special cell, and they don't feed it pollen. They only feed it royal jelly, which is something that comes out of their head, and that turns into a queen in 16 days. And then she has to go out and make a mating flight and come back, and that's kind of the most dangerous part of that. If she doesn't mate properly, or somebody swats her with a newspaper, you're going to lose your hive. But anyway, so the females do all the work in the hive. They build the comb, they do everything. The males do absolutely nothing. They're a drain on the hive. They eat, they don't bring back pollen, they don't bring back honey. When they're old enough, they go fly out. They're called like bachelor pads. They just kind of fly around. A queen will fly through and they'll mate. Once a drone mates, it dies. So at the end of the year, if you see drones flying in and out of the hive, the females will kick it out and kill it, because it's just a drain on the hive and it's going to eat their food, and they don't need that in there during the winter time. On the far right is the queen. She can lay up to 2,000 eggs a day. She can, let's go back to the workers. Once they sting you, they die. They get one sting, they die. They generally don't want to sting unless you're going in the hive. If they're out 2 miles away foraging, you can kind of flick them and poke them. They're not going to sting you. They want to take their honey, their nectar, and their pollen back to the hive. A queen will sting you multiple times. Mostly what she does with her stinger is kill other queens. If there's another queen in the hive, or they're building another queen, she'll kill it before it's born. But she can sting multiple times, and she can live up to 4 to 5 years. A worker bee can live 6 to 8 weeks in the summertime, and 3 to 4 months in the wintertime. So those are your 3 bees that you have in your hive. And you will get all 3 of these, whether you buy a package or whether you buy a nucleus. So, okay, whoever asked the question what cat brood is, that bottom right-hand picture is cat brood. Do you see how the queen is laid? Every one of those little hexagons is an egg. The ones with the holes in it have hatched, or she skipped that spot. If she skips a spot, she doesn't like the way it looks to put an egg in there. She doesn't feel it's been built right. Or she laid an egg and that bee is already hatched. But that's a good laying queen right there. She's left to right, top to bottom. And what the bees will do around it is, you see it's in a dome shape. they will fill those top ones up with honey. The queen won't go above the honey. It's called the honey line. She'll lay eggs up to the honey, but she won't go to the next box because of that. And that's the way they keep her down in the box, and the upper boxes are full of honey, and she doesn't start laying eggs in the honey, which then makes the honey bad. But there's your cat brood right there. If you open it up and you see that, you got a good looking queen. She's doing a good job. She's doing a very good job. She's a good laying queen, and you don't want to mess with her. The other stuff in here I just threw in there for you. It tells you how the life cycle of a bee, how long it takes a queen to once she's laid as an egg to make it to be the queen stage. The worker and the drone. The drone of all things is the biggest drain on the hive, and it takes the longest for them to be born. The queen is the shortest. But the life of a worker bee, which is a female, is on the left. It goes from the egg to the pupa to the bee as it comes out. And then it tells you what it does during its life cycle. It cleans its cell, like we talked about earlier. It feeds older and younger larvae. It feeds the queen, builds comb, cleans the hive, ventilates the hive. If you see a lot of bees on the outside of the hive flapping, they're trying to cool the inside of the hive up. If all the bees go in the hive, they're in a giant ball, keeping the area around, not the entire hive, but the area around the eggs at 92 degrees. That area is always at 92 degrees, whether it's 110 out or 28 out. They will keep the area around the eggs at 92 degrees. And they do it by wiggling and by flapping their wings and bringing cooler air in. And then once they leave the hive, they collect water, pollen, nectar, and propolis. And most bees die away from the hive. They just go out for a flight and then they just never come back. The ones that die in, you get some of the worker bees that are in the 21 to 42 days. They'll pick that bee up, take it out of your hive, and drop it off the side. But they do keep a clean hive, and they don't leave a lot of dead in there. But that's, just some stuff for your information. If you're curious onto what bees do and what part of their life, I put in 2 or 3 little things for you. Again, this is the same thing. It's just a different graph on how long it takes a queen, a worker, and a drone to go, what they do through their lifetime. It's everything we discussed. Now, if you look, I don't know if you can see my pointer right there, that little peanut-shaped shell, that's what a queen is born out of. The rest are worker bees, but if you see a peanut-shaped shell in there, that's where the queen egg is. They build a special comb for her. She's not born in the regular comb. But a lot of the slides coming up now are just informational slides for you, and when you get further into it. Again, this is basically the exact same thing I did. It's just a different slide. Some people visualize things one way, some people visualize them the other. So I'm just giving you different ways to look at things. Again, it's the queen, the worker, and the drone. And this is just for informational purposes and for you to go back and for your library. The queens, you can see the 2 on the right. One is marked in blue and one is marked in green. This is how you mark a queen. It makes it easier to find on the comb if you care enough to find your queen. Queens live 5 years, so every 5 years the cycle stops. We're in 1 now, so if you buy a hive and you get a marked queen, they will be marked with a white dot on their back. And so say in 2024, you open a hive up and you've got a queen with a white dot on her back, you'll know that she's pretty old and she's probably at the end of her life. If you open up a hive this year and it's got blue, she was born last year, so she's only a year old. She's pretty good, but you can see in the pictures, the queen's body is elongated. Basically she gets too fat to fly. If they swarm, they have to put her on a diet. But when she mates, she goes out and mates for 3 or 4 days in a row. And then that's all the sperm that she needs for the rest of her lifetime to lay 2,000 eggs a day during the high season of the summertime. But she keeps that all in her body, in her thorax or torso. And So she can go for 4 years laying eggs to 5 years. They're kind of fascinating little things. But the color, I did this for your color markings. If somebody says, you know, it's a sells you next year a nuke with a white queen in there or a blue queen, you know that she's 2 years old and it's not a new hive. You're probably going to want to ask about how old the queen is and if it's marked, so you can tell what year that queen was born. And that's just done by humans. They obviously don't grow like that, the bees. All right. So once you set up your hive, you get it going, you're going to want to give them some sugar water. And there's two ways to do it. One's a front feeder. I don't know what I just did. You make your sugar water. You use a 2-to-1 ratio or 1-to-1 ratio. 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of hot water. You shake it up. You got simple syrup. You have this. You just stick it into the entrance and they will eat it. There's little holes in there and they will go through one of these a day. That's a quart. They will go through one of them a day. What I like to use is a top bar feeder. This goes on top of the hive. The bees climb up through this side from the inside of the hive. They climb over and they get the honey. And this holds about 2 or 3 gallons. And they will empty this in less than a week. So the reason you feed your bees is once they're in the hive, they realize that, hey, I've got a good thing going. I've got a lot of honey. I've got a lot of resources. I've got a lot of stuff going on. I don't need to go elsewhere because we're pretty well set. In the fall, when you feed them to get them through the winter, use a 2-to-1 ratio. It's thicker, 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. It's thicker. The bees don't have to work quite as hard to evaporate the water in there before they cap it and make honey out of it. Why do you feed? You got a new package, you got a new swarm. They have low stores. They're not going to make it through the winter without you feeding them. If you move a hive, you feed them, it makes them comfortable where they are. You don't have a lot of bees. You're trying to help them out again, you know, and if there's a drought, if the flowers aren't blooming and stuff, you feed the bees. I will do that, and I do that often. The picture on the right is my apiary in Roanoke. That's my niece looking over. You just fill the top in. The bees come up. They can't get to her because they're blocked in. But that's why you feed a colony. So what's on your frames? To the left is your cat brood, which we were talking about earlier. That's a beautiful frame right there. You know, the queen is laying left to right, top to bottom. She's filling that thing up and she's doing a good job. There's a whole section down here of empty. They've already started to hatch. To the right, that's capped honey. If you're going to take honey for the bee, make sure that almost like 90% of it is capped. If it's uncapped, you can see it. If it doesn't have the wax over top, it's not ready to be harvested. The bees will not cap the honey until it's ready. If they don't, it'll sour on you. But that's what you're going to look for when you go into a hive is you have cat brood, you have honey, and then the frame on the right, that's pollen. You can see each frame, each cell has a different color. They put different pollen there. Some is from, you know, oak, some is from maple, some is from squash plants, some is from your tulips, some is from whatever. They're grabbing whatever they can get for pollen. They mix the pollen with their saliva and they make bee batter and they feed the babies with it. So that's why you need the pollen. And when you buy a nucleus, you're going to get a frame with the queen on it with the cat broods. You'll get a frame or two with the honey. You'll get a frame or two with the pollen and some empty space for them to grow. And, you know, the picture on the left is when you have a nice hive and it's hot, they'll come out and they'll beard and they'll just empty out the hive a little to drop the temperature inside. But these are things you need to look for. Don't freak out, but you also don't want your dog to go in there. I'm just showing you pictures of, you know, what you can expect if you decide to start beekeeping and if you decide to put this in your yard. This is what's going to be going on in your yard. All right, so welcome to beekeeping. We have a hive. The picture on the bottom right, that is a worker bee, and you can see on each of her back legs, she has pollen. That's how they bring pollen into the hive. And if you excuse me, I'm going into my freezer. I have, you see that? That is just all pollen. People take this for nutritional reasons. People take this for health reasons. There you go. That is being knocked off her legs before she comes in the hive. So people do collect it. And that's one of the reasons we talked about of why keep bees. Collect pollen. It's good for your health. People think if you eat pollen, if you eat local honey, it helps with your allergies. So welcome to beekeeping. We went from nothing to a hive. The rest of the pictures or slides are just some informational things on what kind of flowers. I always plant sage. I plant blue basil or purple basil. I'm sorry. I plant a lot of herbs in my yard. I plant a lot of flowers in my yard. These are things that attract pollinators. This is for your information. Once you get into beekeeping, people get into rearing chickens. They're having chickens. People get into gardening. It almost starts to build upon itself. And the next thing you know, you got a farm in your yard.
Michael, we have a
pollen
question.
And nectar charts. Yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry. How do you get the pollen off bees' legs?
Okay. There's a special contraption you put here. Instead of the bees coming directly into the hive, they go through a kind of like a mesh screen that's big enough for the bee to get through. But as they squeeze their body through, it kind of knocks the pollen off onto a cup below it. That's a little bit more of your advanced beekeeping. But instead of letting the bees go directly in and out of your hive right here, they go through a mesh screen, they squeeze through it, and it knocks it off their back legs into a container. And you don't want to leave that there year round. You want to do it for like a week because the bees do need the pollen. I'm a big believer of let the bees have the stuff that they make. I will take a frame or two every year. If the hive looks strong enough, I will collect a little pollen. If it's a really big, strong hive and they're bringing in a ton of pollen, it's funny, you'll watch bees fly in. One will have yellow legs, one will have orange legs, one will have a deep brown leg. Those bees are flying to different places and coming back to their hive doing that. But there's a special contraption that you put underneath where the bees fly through and it knocks it off. And then you just open the bottom, you take it. You kind of have to dry it in the sun, and then you have to kind of pick out dirt and leaves and stuff, and then you get, pollen. This just came out of the freezer, so it's starting to condensate. These are just pollen and nectar charts. Go ahead.
We have one more question. What does an unassembled hive cost?
I always bought mine at the location. And they say, when you buy them, shipping's included, but it would be like $220 if you bought it online. But once you went there and picked it up, they charge you $180. Shipping's included. It's like Amazon. Shipping's included, but it's also built into the price. I'm going to say you should start with 2 hives because you can take from one hive food and give it to the other, or you can learn. There's also like a 40 to 60%, depending on the year, hive loss. So if you lose one hive, you've lost everything. If you lose one of your 2 hives, the next year you can split and start with 2 hives again. But you're going to spend about total $300. That includes buying the bees, buying the hives. You're going to want to buy a hive tool. You're going to probably want to buy 3 of these because as soon as you get into a hive, you can never find it. A bee brush. And this is a hive stand, which you hook to the side of your hive and you can put your frames on there. But, you buy all that stuff. To get one hive up and running, probably $300 to $350, depending on whether you buy a box of bees or whether you buy a nucleus, because nucleuses are a little bit more expensive. But you can get a hive, that one that I had in the beginning, that big stack. I don't think I paid over 200 for that. I think it's like 180 for all that stuff. That comes with the frames inside and everything else. Sadly, Remington and Fishersville, those are the two beehive places in Virginia I went to. There's the only two places I've ever bought anything from. They've both gone out of business. Dadant, Dadant, that's an online place, and Bushy Mountain. Those would probably be the two places that you can get online, Bushy Mountain and Dadant, and they will ship you everything you need. So, but yeah, for 2 hives, I think when I did it, it was probably $5 to $5.50 to get them going. And I bought stain and lacquer, and I kind of like the all natural look of the hives. I did that. So, you know, it took a little bit longer than just taking white paint and putting 2 coats on it. But to get started with 2 hives, figure minimum $500, and that includes the purchase of the bees. So it's, there's a meme or the poster on one of the bee groups I'm in, and there's plenty of bee groups online. It says teach your kids beekeeping because they'll be too broke to start taking drugs. Because you will go through a good amount of money trying to keep bees up and running. It's not a cheap, but once you get going, you know, the price goes down. And once you learn how to catch bees, you don't ever have to buy bees again. Is there another question?
Yes. How did you move your hives when you really relocated to Richmond?
Oh, put them in one of these boxes. I just took the frames out of there. You do it at night. I did it late at night because that's when almost all the bees are back in the hive. You do it in the middle of the afternoon, half your bees are out working. When you inspect your hives, you want to do it in the middle of the afternoon because half your bees are working. So instead of a beehive could have 60, 70, 80,000 bees in it, 45,000 of them are gone. You're only dealing with the 45,000 in here. So I just picked the frames up, took them out of the hive, put them in here, put the top on it, put a bungee cord around it, and the one hive I took to Roanoke in 4 of these boxes. And when you move a beehive, you move it 3 feet or 3 miles. You can't move a beehive from your front to your back because it confuses them. They don't know how to get back. They can leave the beehive and fly 2 miles and come back. They can tell the other bees exactly where the honey is, exactly where the plants are, exactly where everything is. But if you move it from there to there in my house, you'll have a bunch of bees just hanging out on your front porch, not knowing where to go. So that's another thing. You don't, go ahead.
How do you extract the honey?
There's a couple of ways. If you join a bee group, they usually have a honey extractor. And what you would do, and they give you a honey knife. This is, by the way, a beautiful frame of honey. I pulled this about a month ago, and it's been in the freezer ever since. I took it out last night. You can see it's starting to drip honey. But your bee group will have a centrifugal force thing. You take a hot knife, and it's a heated knife that plugs in, and you scrape the cappings off of both sides, and you put it in there, and then centrifugal force will spin the frame, and it will pull it out, and it'll all collect in the bottom. And then when you pull it out, you have a frame of comb with no honey in it, and you put that back in the hive. They'll repurpose the honey that's left in there, and they'll reuse it. That's the best way to do it. And if you would pardon me for 1 second. So what I did with my last bunch is I just took the comb and took a kitchen spoon, scraped it all into this net, and just let it drip. That's called the crush method. You do ruin your frame of honey, but you can give it back to the bees. They'll clean it up. They'll rebuild it. And what I have left over here is all the cappings that, you know, you clean off and you make wax with that. That is what the wax is. But those are the two best ways to do it. The best way to do it is get with your bee group. They will lend you for $10 a year. You know, that's the best thing. They will lend you the capping knife and the machine. You put in 10 frames. You can hand spin them. Some of them are mechanical where it'll spin on their own, but you just hand spin them until all the centrifugal force pulls the honey out, or you use the crush method like this. And this has been sitting here for several weeks and it's still dripping honey a little bit.
Why did you have that in the freezer?
Just so it didn't melt all over the place and drip and stuff. Also, when you take your frames out that you're going to harvest, you put them in the freezer anyway for a few days to kill any bugs that are on there. You know, they kind of, you know, gets rid of a bunch of stuff. So when I harvest honey, I harvest it one hive at a time. I don't take from all my hives and mix it together. I just harvest the honey and I harvest the wax individually from one hive at a time. And you can just see the different colors of the honey. And one hive was, you know, might have been on my front deck, or one hive in my backyard, and the honey comes out and the wax comes out a completely different color depending on where the bees went to do their thing. I just find that more interesting. This is two different honeys. One's from 2018. Actually, these are from the same hive 3 years apart. Jake's hive, I named them after my girlfriend's kid and my mother and my nieces and nephews. So this is Jake's hive in 18. This is Jake's hive in 2021. Same hive, you know, obviously different bees by that time, but it's been the same hive. And they decided to go somewhere different to get their nectar to make honey. But
there's one more question. Do you store it in the freezer?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, honey lasts forever. This is the other side of my kitchen. I just have everything stored up there. I hope you can see that.
How much honey do you harvest from one hive in a summer?
Well, it depends on what you take out. That's one frame, and it is substantial. I bet you that one frame weighs 20 pounds. I usually only get a gallon or two. Some people can get 80 pounds out of a hive a year. You know, and the other way you asked about harvesting honey, use this, and I forget where I put it. If you have an all-natural frame where you let the bees build everything down, there's no plastic in between, you take this and you just cut onto the frame. Can you see this? You take this and you just cut onto the frame like that, and you go through the frame and you grab it, and that's when you get this. You get honey with the comb in the hive. So you can also do that. I know, like, what's that place out of Georgia that sells this? This is $25 each, I think they sell up for. So that's just the comb from both sides. You can see it from both sides. And that's honey in the comb, and you just eat it. And it's actually delicious. So those are a couple different ways to extract your honey.
We have one other question. Do the bees in each hive pollinate specific plants?
They're going to pollinate anything they come in contact with. And it depends on the time of year and what plants they go to. That's why the pollen chart that's up on the screen right now. They don't do it on purpose. They just, they start to climb through one plant and they fly to the next. Well, they've got pollen all over them. And I don't know anything, that much about pollination, but bees, they'll just fly to the next plant. And if they get pollen off a male plant, they take it to a female plant or whatever, however that works. They're just pollinating. So, and quite frankly, they can be in a cornfield and go to a strawberry field and they're going to mix that up. So, I mean, I don't know if the wrong pollen hits the wrong plant. I don't know what happens, but I do know that every third bite you take, bees pollinate a third of everything we eat. So without the bees, we're going to lose a third of our food supply. But they just, when they fly in, they pollen, they gather pollen all over their body. They fly to the next one, they're pollinating. And they're not doing it knowingly that I'm pollinating okra today or I'm pollinating squash today. They're just flying around doing their thing. And there's a different thing of honey varieties. If you put a beehive in an orange field or an orange grove, you're going to get, orange, what do they call that? Honey. If you put it in a field of clover, you get clover. Wildflower honey is where you don't know where it comes from. My stuff is all wildflower. I don't know where they go. I don't know what they do. Tupelo honey, they put it in a Tupelo field or garden or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it's called. That's Tupelo honey. People make a lot of money by having, hundreds, if not thousands of beehives and renting them to orange or apple growers or peach growers or orange growers and putting their hives all over their property. The farmer pays for the bees to pollinate. And then the guy that owns the bees, he collects the honey. So not only does he get paid for his beehives to be used, he's getting honey out of that as well. So this is just what different honeys look like. And I showed you a couple pictures of my honey. I don't know where the bees went. I don't know how they got it. I don't know what they did. So I just call it wildflower honey. And that's the thing that's my little honey library. So I think that was it. I will show you this real quick on how to assemble a beehive. I brought it into my kitchen. Can I stop sharing this? There you go.
Yeah.
So when you get your beehive, this is your bottom board. And it has a sliding thing in it. I take this out in the summertime, so it vents a little better. And in the wintertime, I usually like to put it with a little bit of a vent in it. It helps keep it a little bit warmer inside. But bees can handle cold. Bees can handle water or moisture. They can't handle them both. And if you don't have it vented properly, they will freeze to death. So this is your bottom board. You're going to put this on some cinder blocks or something, or your beehive, and this is where we get started. All right. So this is a 10-frame hive. We're going to lay it on top. And if you buy a nuke, you take 5 frames out, and you would just add those 5 frames in, you've got a nuke. If you buy one of those bee packages, some people just shake it in there. They put the queen cage in there and they let it go. I find that a little bit disturbing for the bees, but there's a couple of different ways to get your frames. You can put in a frame without anything in there, and you can see what the bees have started to do. They've attached, they've started building comb. This is how you get this kind of honey. You let them build their own comb, left to right, top to bottom. They will do it in an empty frame. Or you can start them out on an all natural frame. This is a wax, basically starter kit that you put in the frame, and it gives the bees a head start. This is where you're going to get your honey from, and not the cut comb that I just showed you, because this has wires in it. But the bees will build from both sides on this. And this is a bee frame with comb on it. You can tell it's plastic. It's a black bee frame. I got those for one of my hives. I really don't recommend it. They've never liked these. They've never built well on these. This has been damaged over the years, but the bees just will build on both sides. They've never liked the black. So if they ask you what you want, I would kind of suggest that you get the frame. This one has a slot in the top. You just put the wax thing in there and you're good to go. It's a natural frame. So once you have your bee frame, I suggest your top feeder goes on top. You put your nucleus in there. You put your top feeder on top. Obviously, I got tools in there. You fill it up with honey, the sugar water, and the bees will come up this side. They'll climb over. They'll get their honey, and they'll come back. And then when you have the top feeder on, you just put the top lid on, and you're done. After a couple of weeks, take the top feeder off. And if you know, say this is a top level, you'll just put the inner cover on. It has a vent in the back. You put that in the back and you put your lid back on. I will sometimes put a bottle cap on each end to pop the lid up a little bit. And you also want your beehive to be level. The whole thing will be level or the bees will start building wonky, but there's your beehive. That's what you have. And then one last thing, when you get started, this is an entrance reducer. Since you don't have a strong hive, you want them all to go through that one small hole. That's all they have to defend. Once the hive gets a little stronger, you switch it. They have a longer hole to get through. And then once they're a strong hive, you take it out and they can fly in and out as needed. So that's what your hive is going to look like when you get started. And when they start filling up those inner frames, I'm suggesting an 8-frame hive. This is a 10. But once they start getting to 6 to 7 frames, you just stick a second box of empty frames on top. And then once you've got a good solid hive, start putting, it's hard for you to all see everything. Start putting your honey box hives on. This is a smaller hive. The frames are more shallow. You can see this is a white background that they've built on. And you always save these because you can use them, you know, for other hives the next year. You can see the wire through here. So you know that's not going to be an all natural frame. But yeah, this is where you're going to, that's a hard plastic one. This is where you're going to harvest your honey from, this size frames. The bigger boxes in the back, that's the body of the hive where the queen lives, where she lays her eggs and where she does all that stuff. So that's going from 0 to having a hive. We've asked a few questions, but we're not going to get into queen rearing, splitting, and all that stuff. But if you have questions, let me know. Happy to do it. We've been doing this for 1 hour and 15 minutes. I am going to throw on my bee suit and I'm going to go out into the back in a minute and I'll take the computer with me. If you guys don't have any more questions, give me 5 minutes. We'll crack open the hive if you want me to. If you want to go on with your day and eat dinner or whatever, that's fine. But I'm going to crack open the hive, see what's going on. I don't know what's going on in this hive. But if you think that'll be of interest to you, I'm happy to do that. You let me know.
Michael, there is a question. Yeah. How long can you leave them unattended, like if you go away on vacation?
Years. I mean, they're bees. They'll figure out what to do. If they don't have enough room and you've gone on vacation, they'll swarm. Half the bees will leave with the queen and they'll move somewhere else. And that's how I catch my bees. I mean, it's like your kids leave. It was my dad, my mom, my brother, sister, and I. Now my mom and dad have a house. My brother has a house. I have a house. My sister has a house. We've swarmed. We've left. And then we've started our own hives elsewhere. Bees are fine. Leave them alone. People go in every week and they poke about and they add layers. They take their stuff. I send bees into the winter with at least 60 to 80 pounds of stores. So I like for them to go in and have enough of what they need. But again, well, during the pandemic, I didn't go to the Roanoke hives where my mom's house for 6 or 8 months, and it was fine when I got there. One had swarmed. I think they both swarmed. One had requeened itself, the other one didn't. What I did is I took a frame of eggs out of one hive, shook all the bees off, put it in the hive that didn't have a queen, and I was hoping they would use those eggs to, raise another queen. It never happened, so I lost the hive. But that was more on them than me, that the queen they did raise was killed on a mating flight, or she wasn't doing a good job and the other bees killed her. And and they just didn't have they just didn't get a queen. Once a hive is queenless, which this hive might be, that we're going to dig into, and we'll find out in a minute, it'll eventually die out. But a lot of beekeepers, after 2 years, they'll kill their queen on their own, and they'll reintroduce a new queen, or they'll clip the queen's wings so she can't fly and they can't swarm. I think you're just screwing with nature at that point. I'm not God. I'm just Mike. I enjoy beekeeping, and I'm going to let them be. I mean, I know that's a stupid pun, but let them be bees. But they'll live. They'll live. I had a hive for 6 years in Roanoke that I never saw a queen. I never split it. I never did any mite treatment on it. It was 6 years old. I just let it go. And then you got other people that lose hives every year and buy bees every year. I don't know. I just think they're good on their own. Anything else?
Okay, I think that's all the questions that are in chat. So, except we would love to see the hives. So those that want to hang on will hang on while you put on your suit.
So this is just a jacket. It doesn't go over my feet. I just wear jeans. I wear long socks. And you'll have to give me 1 minute to get going. I need to go into the sunroom behind me here. My dog's in there now, and I have to close off his dog door so he doesn't come out on the deck and check out what we're doing. If you don't mind,
take
a minute or two, y'all can get a cocktail.
Tell students they can go take a potty break. Thanks, Mike. Take your time.
Yep. All right. I'll be right back. No. Stay, buddy. You're good. Come on. You're good. Come on, tree.
Don't forget your mic is live, Mike.
I know. That's why I'm trying not to touch my dog.
Did we lose him? Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, we may have.
Wow. He may pop back on as he gets set up. I was worried about the Wi-Fi. Let's hold on a minute, guys, and see if he comes back in. I stopped the video, so we'll try to get them together somehow, or you'll have 2 different videos, okay?
That's all right. That was my fault. Is everybody here?
I think almost everybody stayed on, so we'll have at it.
Yes.
All right, as long as you can hear me. Sorry, I disconnected from everybody. I don't see anybody on here at this point.
We got you. You look great. I know it's
21
hot.
people, I think.
Do what?
There are 21 people, I think.
Yep, you got 21 of us, so go ahead.
I didn't mean to bore the other ones out. So, no matter how
Not
much you
boring
zip
at
yourself
all.
up,
Nah, they just had something else.
It's only one.
So this is my backyard. It's actually my driveway. This is the entrance to the hive. All right.
Oh, yeah.
If you see anybody, so they're defending their hive now. I'm kind of irritating them.
Uh-huh.
But that's what it looks like. Now, I'm going to try to fire up a smoker.
It's fun to see him flying around in front of the camera.
You get beehives, they're going to fly around all the time. Bees everywhere. Now, what I usually do is I just have some pine needles. Get this thing going. And I'll throw a pine cone or something in there once it gets going for, extra long life, or some sticks as I catch my house on fire.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of rushing this along a little bit for time, but you'll see. Now, what the smoke does, it alarms the bees. It tells them that there's a fire. So they're going to actually go into the hive. And you don't want to over smoke them, but they'll go into the hive to start alerting the other bees. And it calms them down a little bit. So what we're going to do, when we take the top off the hive, we're all in there. Somebody tell me if you can see or not see.
Somebody tell us what?
So you can see or not see. There's the inner cover. And there's a lot of bees going on. So what you do, they have used the propolis to seal this shut. So this thing is sealed shut. They started building wax on here, and this red stuff here in the corner, that's propolis. You see this all the way around the corner? They sealed this shut. And that's what the inside of the hive looks like. I'll bring you back. I'll try to make it so gently, but you see what they're up to here? Assuming the first, all these hives will be nothing but honey. That is honey. That is honey. You can see it here. So this would be something like this. As you can see, this one here going into the hole, working the honey, 2 filter tanks. We'll lay this on the side real quick to make room. This hive may be queenless. These all seem to be honey. This is the honey box that I was talking about earlier, where you see there, they don't have a lot of honey in there. This side they do. This side they don't. You see how calm they are on the hive? They're not really jumping at me. They're not attacking me. The first rule of beekeeping when you get yourself a mentor is if you run, you run. If they start getting wound up, they're mad. So this is kind of interesting. That right there's cat root. That is actually a drone. So there's got to be a queen in here somewhere laying eggs, which I'm really surprised about. I can pretty much guarantee you this whole top shelf is nothing but honey. And since this one isn't capped yet, this is not really the hardest. And I just put my thumb through it so it's reaching honey down. The bees will clean that up. So this whole top shelf is pretty much nothing but honey, which it should be. You don't want your queen up here laying eggs. So we'll go down to the next one to see if we actually can find some cat brood or eggs. And this is why you get an 8-frame box, because this box probably weighs 60 or 70 pounds. It's starting to get a little bit active. And you can hear the box. It is on there tight. Yeah, this thing might weigh up to 160, 70 pounds.
How long can a hive
So
exist
now,
without a queen, Michael? Oh,
well, probably this bee right here has pollen on its legs. If you can see, can you see what I'm touching? That bee's got pollen
put the
on its
camera
legs.
down just a little bit. Sorry, we couldn't see that.
Oh,
There you go.
She went away.
Okay.
There was a bee walking around right here with pollen on its legs. Well, it takes 18 days for bees or 24 days for drones to hatch. So once they're all hatched, they'll live to 6 or 7 weeks after that. And then they're just gone. You know, bees are just dying off, but no new ones are being born. So you've probably got, 2.5, 3 months that they'll live without a queen. They'll just keep coming back and working. They don't know anything different. Some of the worker bees will lay eggs, but they're not viable eggs. All right, well, this is you can see, I don't know if you can see, but that's different pollen all through there. So it's just different colors pollen that you're putting in there. Well, I'm as surprised as you at this point, and not that you're surprised, but we've got a queen. That's cap brood right there. There's a queen in this hive somewhere. And it is just dripping honey everywhere. So there's your cat brood. I'm not going to go hunting for a queen. There's cat brood. There's a queen laying something in here. And you'll note that the bees are starting to make honey around the top. top and stuff. They're trying to confine her down to the bottom frames. But okay, can you see that? Can you see where that's a pupa in there? That needs to be calved and it'll become a bee.
Wow.
So right here, do you see this one right here?
Maybe.
There's an egg that's become a pupa. It'll be capped. And when these open up, they'll become bees. So they are, we've seen everything I want to see. I mean, do you want to see anything else in here? Do you want me to take anything else apart for you?
No, you've done plenty. That's amazing.
They're getting wound up.
Yeah, let's leave them. They're doing their work.
It's a little bit of all right, right here. Do you see her right here? Do you see the pollen on her legs?
Not really, but that's okay. We trust you. It's just hard.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
And this is kind of a spotty looking queen. She's not doing a great job, but I'm just surprised we have a queen in here because I thought we were done.
It looks like you have lots to harvest. That looks good.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll harvest some and we'll see if we can't share any. Let you all try some.
That'd be great.
All right, real quick.
Hey, yeah.
Can you see this? Do you see that right there? It looks like a little peanut, that little hole right there.
Oh, yeah.
That's a queen cell. That's a queen cell. If they're going to kill their queen, they'll take an egg and put it in that cell and treat it differently. The queen will not grow out of any of these. They put her in one of these. They'll just grow them here and again just to have, just in case. But that's where a queen is grown from or born from. She doesn't get bee batter. She only gets royal nectar or royal jelly, which comes out of their head. I don't know. They're weird animals that they make wax out of their thorax. They do royal jelly out of their head. But they only feed her royal jelly, and in 16 days she'll emerge. If there's 3 of these or 4 of these in there with queens, they'll pipe. They'll make a little noise, and the other queens will pipe back at her. And the first one that is hatched, she'll go to the other queen cells and kill them. So you only have 1 queen per hive. So this frame here is all natural. There's nothing in between it. There's none of that plastic. They did this from top to bottom, left to right on their own. It's a little wanky, but again, they're doing their thing. So we walked away from the hive for 5 seconds, and this is what they look like. Can you see?
Yeah.
Is that a good
Wow.
picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking at 30,000, maybe 50,000 bees. And they're starting to get a little wound up.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Sorry. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have anything else? Because I'm going to have to put the camera down and put this back together here in a minute.
No, I think we're all good. We really appreciate your time.